Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 90.
Congratulations, you showed up. Give yourself a high five in celebration of your success. Welcome to the Cashflow Diary, where new and experienced investors come to take confident action towards their goals. Your host is a family man, a real estate entrepreneur, investor, coach, and instructor. As a master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's Cashflow 101 game, he's inspired many to begin their journey into creating cash flow for themselves and their family. And now, here he is to offer you the tools required to earn the income desired. Your cash flow coach, Jay Massey.
All right, and welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I am your host, Jay Massey, and oh man, you know what's great? What's great is that in this world today, this world of technology, you can reach many, many people, and you never know just who you may run into, even on a podcast. Most importantly, I think today's guest is going to share with you decades, literally decades of wisdom that is going to help yourself. It's going to help me. It's going to help everybody who listens to this take more action, move faster, move at the speed of instruction, as we always like to say, and most importantly, raise a whole bunch of capital. Now, before we get there, for those of you joining us for the first time, here's what I want you to do. Go straight over to learninvestingnow.com. That's a learninvestingnow.com. And you know what? If you've not done it and it's not your first time, go anyway. Learninvestingnow.com, because I'm going to begin to show you how to learn investing and now.com, because I want you in action. I don't want you just listening and consuming information. It's time to take action, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to do it together right there. Today's guest, in my opinion, literally wrote the book on what it is that many of us are looking to do in terms of building cash flow, raising capital, and making things happen. He's been practicing real estate. Doctors practice. We perform real estate, miracles maybe, for a number of decades. And one of the things that I have learned is that it is easier to learn from the mistakes of others and the wisdom of others than to make all the mistakes myself. And I am looking forward to introducing you to the top of the top possibilities when it comes to knowing how to do syndications, knowing how to raise capital, knowing what they're all about, and most importantly, making the information accessible to you and I. And when I say literally wrote the book, I do mean literally wrote the book. He's got a book, Principles of Real Estate Syndication, and it covers a wide gamut of ways to make that thing happen for you. So therefore, you probably now know that I'm talking about none other than Mr. Samuel Freshman. How you doing, sir?
Very good, Jay. Very good.
I am so glad that you are here today. Thank you for investing your time here with us, and we hope to be able to produce a return for you.
Thank you for having me.
So one of the things that I like asking people, especially entrepreneurs, is that I look at today's entrepreneurs as the same as yesterday's superheroes. Superheroes, they got capes and tights and all these things, and they do great things and they save people. And I think today's entrepreneurs, especially real estate entrepreneurs, do that very same thing. However, every entrepreneur has a beginning. They have what I call an origin story. What I would really like to know is, before you were Samuel Freshman, professional syndicator, promoter, author, and all these other things, who was Sam Freshman?
I was a recent graduate from Stanford University and Stanford Law School, and I'd gone to law school because my dad hated lawyers and felt we needed one in the family. And he said, go there, and I'll teach you about business later. And I graduated thinking I was going to go into business with him. And we had a talk, and I said, Dad, I got two brothers that are already in the family business. I think that's enough. I'd like to practice law, but I don't know what to do. My dad, who'd only been in California for probably 2 or 3 weeks before I graduated, was a very, very astute guy. And I said, Dad, should I be a tax lawyer? Should I be a litigator? Should I be a tort lawyer, etc.? And you know what he shot back to me? He said, Sam, go into real estate. That's where all the money's made in California. So that's that's how I got into it. Was
Wow.
basically on very good advice, and I saw how my clients were getting rich, and decided that's enough of that. And after practicing for some time, several years, I did a real estate deal. I was always dabbling on my own, and I made more money in that one real estate deal than I did in 20 years of practicing law. And I said, it's time to quit the law and just stick with the real estate. And that's it. I can tell you, I have made every single mistake that you could possibly make in real estate, but I try to do it only once, and I've lived a long time. I say the two biggest mistakes I've ever made was I didn't buy enough and I sold too soon.
Wow. That's interesting. I like that. And so it's interesting when you say that. I mean, okay, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. You said that first deal, you made more with that one deal than you had did you say 20 years practicing?
20 years practicing law.
Goodness gracious. I mean, I've heard people say things like I made more in one deal than I used to make in 1 year, but never 20 years. So that we'll call that a really, really big hint. So when that hint comes and when you get you're like, okay, I should go in this direction. How do you make the mental switch from attorney to let's do this real estate thing full time?
Well, it was sort of easy to do when I looked at the numbers. I just couldn't afford to continue to practice.
Wow.
And I think since Jay, you're in this as well, you know as well as I do that real estate is all about leverage. And since this is a discussion really about syndication, if people could just get a hold in their mind, those entrepreneurs that are listening, that all syndication is taking that leverage that you do with the debt and carrying it one step further and applying it to the equity as well.
Yes. And that's exactly what I meant by making this thing that seems so complicated, simple. So talk to us a little bit. How does, in your mind, how would someone today, how does syndication play a role in today's, real estate market and et cetera?
Well, syndication hasn't changed in the 60 some years that I've been involved with it. First for my clients and then for myself. The idea of syndication is basically the same as the idea of real estate. We always talk about real estate as being location, location, location. But actually, real estate is more about how you finance your transaction and selecting the right type of financing for the time that you're in. Right now, we're in very low interest rates. We just closed a deal, locked the rate Monday. We got a 30-year loan at 4.3% on an apartment building that we're buying. That's probably, we hit the all-time low. We could have taken a 10-year loan, probably at somewhere around 3.9, but for that little extra spread, we've eliminated all interest rate risk for the next 30 years.
Yep. That now you bring up a topic that I think sometimes we may not consider, or many people may not understand completely, but because when you look at it, you say, well, 3.9, why would you pay the little extra? Could you talk to us a little bit about what you look at when you say interest rate risk?
Well, the interest rate risk is the following. Today, let's say you took a 10-year loan at 3.9. Well, in 10 years, no one knows what the interest rates would be. If you've used a maximum leverage, which we don't recommend, when you come up for renewal, if the interest rates are 6%, you'll have to give the building back to the lender. I don't like doing that, so I want to eliminate that risk by using basically a long-term fixed rate, and I'll pay a little extra for that insurance. Also, every time you refinance, if we're talking about 30-year period, you're going to refinance at least twice more, and that involves extra charges, points for the new loan, new appraisals, and just a lot of things that would interfere with my sleep at night. So we generally, we're a little different than most companies in that we're buying for long term. We assume that when we buy a property, we're never going to be able to sell it. So we don't buy anything that is dependent on reselling. We have to be comfortable with it, that we'd be happy with it if we had to hold it forever.
Got it. And I liked how you termed that. You said that the difference, the spread, the delta between the 3.9 or the 4.3, you called that insurance.
That's right.
I like that. So go ahead.
You're eliminating the interest rate risk, which is where I have friends who are worth literally hundreds of millions of dollars. They're real players, and then they're wiped out in the next crash because instead of taking a 66% or a 70% loan, they take an 85 or an 80% loan, and when it comes time to renew and the interest rate is higher, the debt service wipes out the cash flow.
And I'm just curious, how many times have you seen that happen?
5.
5. Okay.
I've been 60 years. I've been through 5 recessions.
Wow. And still going on. I love it. And I love the fact that you're like, yeah, and I'm buying another building just yesterday. That's great. So with all of this, experience and the things that you've seen, when it comes to syndication, what do you see the new person, the person who's never done one? What is like the number one thing that you see that they don't do that they should do?
They don't do enough due diligence. Real estate is a business where, you've heard of Murphy's Law.
Yeah, I think I've been introduced to Murphy personally once or twice.
Okay, well, Murphy is what can go wrong will. And the other, and what I say, and it's in my savings list, Murphy was an optimist.
Gotcha.
You have to think about that for a minute. But if you're looking at a piece of real estate and you don't find anything wrong with it, you simply have not looked far enough. The key to success, long-term success in real estate, is determine what the problems are with the specific property you're looking at, or the project, and figure out whether it's something that you can solve. If it is, then you go forward. If it isn't, you have the wisdom then to just pass. But so many people are in a hurry to make a deal that that's where they make their mistakes. This is particularly true with environmental matters. Again, I've seen people buy a property and then have to pay more for remediating environmental contamination than they paid for the property.
Wow.
So you want to be sure that you have done all your environmental work. You've checked the direction of the neighborhood. You don't want to buy in a neighborhood where it's getting distressed. Take a good look at the cars in the neighborhood. If a lot of cars are up on blocks in people's front yards, I don't think that's a neighborhood you want to invest in. It's all there. Everything is discoverable, but it takes time and work. It's not easy. Occasionally some people get lucky, but that again is very high. I'm not too much for risk. I'd be happy to just have my money double every 10 years and not take risks. So when somebody presents you with a deal that's too good to be true, my experience is that's exactly what it is.
So let me ask this question. When you first started, were you also of the same opinion that you were happy to let the money double every 10 years?
Yeah, I've always been more on the conservative side, and I've always been tended to move towards, I would say, the better properties. Although the returns are not as high, but the risks are not as great either. Um,
And when you say better properties, what do you mean specifically?
well, we talk about the neighborhood being an A, B, or C neighborhood. The A being the highest level. That I generally can't afford, and the returns are lowest in that area. But the appreciation is usually greater. And the C is the more distressed neighborhoods. So we concentrate on the B, right in the middle. Good now, solid neighborhoods. Everybody's got a job. People take care of their properties, and the rents are sort of in the middle, which is probably less exciting than being on either of the ends.
Indeed.
But less problems there.
Got it. And then I've got to wonder, with the amount of and volume that you've done and the length of time you've been able to participate in the market, what would you say would be the most unique or strange thing you've seen syndicated?
Oh my! Well, I've seen theaters, bowling alleys, assisted living, just about anything. The most unique things have not been real estate. Horses.
Oh, okay.
That's a big area. Well, of course, motion picture theaters, quite often that's the way their financing is done. In fact, the book, Principles of Real Estate Syndication, that you referred to, has a whole section on financing motion pictures in the back, a whole glossary on that. So I would say anything that's income producing over a period of time could be a subject of a syndicate. And syndications today are getting down on a pretty low level. We probably don't have time to go into it today, but if you want to do it on a very low retail level, your listeners should probably look up crowdfunding and on the internet and find out what that's about.
Well, you're actually bringing up a topic that I would love to have your perspective on because I look at them in different levels. So when you do bring up the subject of crowdfunding, obviously many of those listening right now are either familiar or about to become very familiar with it. In your opinion, how do you see that playing in the marketplace with the change in the rules? It almost, to me, feels like it's a free for all to a degree. What do you see the shakeout being?
Well, it'll be sort of like we had for a while. We had this thing on the ticks. It's the tenancies in common. And of course, it seemed great to everybody. They could trade into these things, but the problem is when you get people who don't really know what they're doing and not really checking out their investments, there is incentive for some people to take advantage. And, of course, most of the ticks failed. Few of them did survive. And I'm afraid that's what crowdfunding is, just loosening the rules a little too much. And sometime in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll see a lot of these deals that are now being sold on the crowdfunding platform fail. They use a lot of gimmicks to make it look good on the front end, like interest-only loans, overstate the potential growth rate. There's just all kinds of, to put it bluntly, shell games that go on when it's too easy to raise the money. So I would be cautious. That doesn't mean that there aren't good deals being done, and there's some very responsible crowdfunding companies. Some of them will be at a conference that I'm going to be involved in September 16th, and your listeners could go to creativefinancingconference.com, and we're going to have an all-day conference on some 30 different ways to raise money for your real estate deal, how to get your deal done. Creativefinancingconference.com. It'll be held here in Los Angeles on September 16th.
Nice. Now, what would you say if so with all of this coming, how does anyone make sure that they are the responsible version of the crowdfunding company that you mentioned?
Well, I think if you're now you're talking about being the entrepreneur or the investor.
I was actually going to go both ways with that, but first I wanted to talk about the entrepreneur, and then I was going to say the investor. All right.
Okay, well, I think the entrepreneur needs to have a good team. We talk about, the lawyer, the accountant, the due diligence experts. You need a good team. If you don't really understand real estate and you're just coming in new, get yourself a partner that does. Most everybody knows somebody that's been very successful and is conservative and follows the rules. And I recommend really on both sides, whether you're the entrepreneur or the investor, to if you don't feel you have the knowledge and experience, on your first couple deals, team up with somebody that does. There's always, at any level, someone who's done this before and been through it that you can find among your contacts. And one of the things you want to know when you are an investor is, does the promoter or sponsor have skin in the game? So that's one of the first things you want your accountant to be able to check that part out and make sure how much money the entrepreneur has in the deal. So if you're going to be the entrepreneur, then start out on smaller deals within the scope of your resources. And if you don't have resources, just team up with somebody that does. There's always a lot of people around who want to invest. And so take your lawyer, your doctor, or somebody like that who's maybe got, or your banker, who's got some money saved, and bring them in as a co-partner so that you can say that the sponsor has skin in the game, that has an investment. It doesn't have to be yours, but it does have to be one of the sponsors who's got to have some money at risk. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that's absolutely perfect. You're answering I'm sure there are a lot of people who wonder how these things are done, and they're learning, well, here's how these things are done. And you're making it accessible, making it simple so that many of us can go out there and continue to do it, which is great. Now, with if you could though, I would love for you to share with us a little bit more about the conference, because I'm sure some people are thinking, I would like to know more about that. I want to, hang out with, the people who are out there making things happen. How did that conference come about? Okay, now let me ask you this question. How much time do you actually spend networking? Do you understand its value? More importantly, do you understand how to put yourself in a position to win? And that's what we're really talking about here. Putting yourself in a position to win. I heard Tiger Woods say once is that he wasn't trying to win every round. He was just trying to be in position to win so that when the opportunity came about, he could make something happen. That's what networking is. I know you're probably eagerly awaiting what Sam's about to say, and yes, you'll be able to hear it. One of the things that I just want to stress is put yourself in a position to win. Sometimes just by association, you can win. And learning how to master associations as well as networking and making networking work for you. Notice it's not net eating. It's not net playing. It's networking. It's not let's go to play. It's let's go to work. And one of the good things about that is that networking can be fun. And yes, even for those of you who are saying to yourself, but Jay, I'm an introvert and I don't like people. I understand. I do understand. It's something that you can learn. And I'm here to tell you, it's one of those secret things that if you learn to master it and put yourself in a position to win, you can have a shot at something that you may not have ever considered. Keep that in mind as you listen to what Sam has to say.
Well, we do a conference every year with UCLA, University of California at Los Angeles, on what is happening in the real estate market. And we just had that conference about a month ago. That conference was sponsored by UCLA and Stanford, Spire, which is the Stanford Professionals in Real Estate, the real estate alumni. And we had about 400 people there. That's the 7th year we've done that. We were sold out. And a lot of the people that come to that are beginning syndicators or real estate entrepreneurs. And the big question is, how do I get my deal done? How do I finance it? So I said, well, let's do the same kind of conference. This one will be all day, and we'll be talking about EB-5, which is how to get foreign money. We'll be talking about tax increment financing. We'll be talking about government grants where there's environmental problems and the various government programs that'll pay for that for you. There'll be 6 sessions. It's all day from 8 in the morning till about 5 in the afternoon. And we'll cover, we'll have probably, well, there's 6 sessions. We'll probably have 25 speakers there telling you the various aspects of how to get your deal done and how to set up the financing. There's probably 40 different ways to finance a real estate acquisition.
Yeah, tell me about that. Way too many sometimes. It's like, how do you choose? So with that being the case, let me ask you this. What do you think are some of the character traits? Like, if I've never done this before, if someone's never done it, what are some of the character traits that you've witnessed in a person that increases their likelihood of being successful? Or what are some of those skill sets you think the entrepreneur needs to practice or have or begin to practice and learn in order to make syndication work for them?
Well, I'd say number one is the ability to understand what you can do and where you need help. Nobody has all of the skills. In other words, my skill is in structure, how to do the financing, how to set it up legally, how to be creative and add some value. But I don't know much about the actual construction. So I have a person on my team who's a contractor who goes to all the environmental classes that the government has his contractor's license, dealt with plumbers, carpenters, electricians all his life, and he takes care of that part of it. And then I have somebody else that takes care of the property management, and someone else that does the setup and the due diligence. So the number one skill is knowing how to delegate in those areas that you don't have. Now, some people are very good with numbers, and some people are not. So if that's something that you're missing, then you may want your accountant or somebody who's good with numbers and projections to play a greater role on your team than they do on mine. That's something that I get quite involved in. But when it comes to washing the windows or estimating what it's going to cost to fix the roof, I just throw up my hands and say, this is something I don't know. I just have to have somebody else do that part of it.
Exactly.
So when you're doing your due diligence, you want to have a team of 4 or 5 people so you cover every aspect and find that where that problem is in that particular deal, and so that person can help guide you to the solution.
Indeed. And you speak to the point that I've often tell people, because they ask me, I'm like you, I'm not the construction guy, so please don't ask me how much the tubs cost or how to fix a tub. I'll probably know how much they cost, but I won't know how much, I won't know what materials to use in one situation or another until we get close.
Give you one, Jay. This is one thing that illustrates this, and that is the piping, the plumbing in the building.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the difference between copper, PVC, and the various other types of materials that are used, and what their lives are, and what expenses all have. So I have my guy has to go in there, take a plumber in there with him, determine what that is, and then tell me, well, you got a problem here. This stuff is going to deteriorate in 3 years, or you've got copper throughout, and everything's fine, and it'll probably be good for another 20. And that's just one item. When I started, we had a checklist of 6 items in 1960. Today, we have 60 items on that list.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Our due diligence list is equally, it might be 60 or I don't know. It's multiple pages on an Excel sheet. We condense it all down. And so I guess when you first started, let's talk about this for a second. But when you first started, you didn't know who that plumber was going to be that could do that for you. So how did you attract them and find them?
Well, I was fortunate in that in practicing law, I was focusing on real estate, so I had contacts with all the various players, the plumbers, the contractors, the lenders, the title companies, all the parties I'd been working with for several years before I bought my first deal. And that isn't a bad idea to hook up with somebody that's already doing this and just walk around and follow them around for 6 months or something to get a feel for what's involved. I don't think you need to take years to do that, but certainly I'd recommend at least 6 months of interning, so to speak, if you're starting out. We get people that come to our company and offer to work for nothing. Unfortunately, under the labor laws, I don't want to take that chance. So they have to feel I'm going to get some value out of them, but I will, I'll hire them for $15 an hour or something, and say, okay, now here's what we're going to have you do, and just take them through all the processes. And I say, hopefully by the 6th or 7th month, you'll have learned enough that we can then stop losing money on you. But everybody, as I say, if they check their family and their friends and their neighbors, will find somebody who has a reputation of being successful, and just sort of ask the guy if he can just spend a couple months walking around with him and just listening and watching and running errands for him.
Right. Now, something you keep bringing up that I think we need to talk about, though, is your ability to make connections and network. It seems as though that seems to be a skill set that is absolutely mandatory, regardless of what role you may be playing.
Well, I think, there's a saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that's true of any business. That isn't just real estate, or, you could have a retail store, you could have a tool and die shop, You could be selling automobiles. Your success. I'm a great believer in networking, and I would say, and you brought up a good point, that because I've focused on that, I had to focus on that when I was practicing law, because 60 years ago, lawyers couldn't advertise. It all had to be word of mouth. So as soon as I opened my office, I joined the local junior chamber of commerce. I joined a religious lodge. I joined a church, in my case, a synagogue. And before I knew it, my Rolodex was pretty full. And I sort of focused. If I'd go to a party and there were 50 people there, I'd sort of look over the room and figure out where the people were that could help me. I mean, you can't be shy about this. I can't believe that when I took a career test when I graduated, it said that I was a shy person. I have 6,600 people on my email list. And we're going to be sending out our newsletter shortly. We've had to switch over to email because it's too expensive now to send it regular mail. But you just sort of have to force yourself out there and go to a few networking classes and read some books on it. Again, it's very simple. It's not rocket science. Networking is pretty easy once you get the hang of it, and you're constantly networking. When I'm in an elevator with a stranger, and if I think they may be helpful because I'm in a building with a lot of bankers and lawyers and so on, I'll just ask the person there, what do you do? And sometimes exchange cards with them. Or I'm waiting for my car in a parking garage after attending a lecture. I'll say to the person standing next to me the same thing. And I'll ask them what they do. And then most people will reply asking what you do. And you'll exchange cards and go from there.
Nice. So with that being the case, what would you say is, I mean, because as I'm talking to you, you make it sound as though anyone could actually do this. Why do you think many people feel like it's difficult?
Well, it's like anything else. You have to sit down and plan. I learned a long time ago that most successful people spend a certain amount of time planning. I plan my week, I plan my month, I plan my day, I plan my life. The life plans sometimes change somewhat, but the daily and weekly ones generally go according to plan. How you're going to spend your time, where you're going to spend your time, and of course having goals. When I take on a project, we lay out a timeline with goals as to how long it's going to take to do the due diligence, how long it's going to take to get the money for the loan, set up the loan, how long it's going to take to raise the equity. And everything has a goal set. So you have overall goals, but you got to slice them up into small ones. And then it's more than planning. Then you have to take action. You have to take action.
So how does the person know when it's time to take action? Because I hear this frequently. I want to know more before I do anything.
How do you know when to do that?
Yeah, because a lot of people say things like, I need to learn more before I take action. And they say that for a long time, a really long time. Definitely more than 6 months.
Well, then they didn't have a plan. The plan tells you. You're going to say, I'm going to spend so much time, 3 months, 6 months, a year. If it's going to be longer than a year, I'd say forget it and do something else. But I think those people are just using that as an excuse. They're afraid to go forward. Now, if you want, it depends too on what you want in life. Some people don't need a lot of money. I unfortunately was a Monopoly addict when I was a youngster, and so I say I've never spent a day working in my life. I'm still playing Monopoly, and so to me, going to work and doing this is fun. And even I've probably gone 30 years beyond when I had to. As far as I don't need haven't needed any more money for many, many years. But I love it. I don't know what I'd do if I didn't do this. Used to horseback ride somewhat, but I'm too old for that now. So thank God I still have real estate to do.
Definitely one way of looking at it. Go ahead.
You know, it's a combination. Plans are no good without action, but action is no good without a plan. I often tell people when I'm doing mentoring, you're not going to get from here to there without a roadmap. If you want to go somewhere, you better have a map on how you're going to get there, or you're just spinning wheels. So, but once you've got your map, you better get on that road and start going, because you can spend the rest of your life, and this is what you're talking about. Some people just spend their time making maps.
Right. And doing...
Never getting on the road.
Exactly.
But you keep saying something which I contend as well. Life is simple. It's us, the people, that screw it up and make it complicated. Everything is very simple. Again, I was very fortunate. My father always had his answer. Anything I would ask him, he would have an answer in one sentence. Like I used to say, Dad, how do I determine whether or not I should take this case? It's legal, but I'm not comfortable with it. And he'd say, it's very simple. Would you want everyone to know, would you want this to appear on the front page of the daily newspaper? If you don't care about everybody knowing that you're taking this case and doing what the client asks you for, then you've got no problem. If you have any concern about it, just skip it and go on. Nothing was ever, he never gave me a complicated answer.
That is one way to judge it. I love it. Now, one of the last things I'd love to spend some time with is you were mentioning before that you had a book, the title, The Smartest Way to Save. I'd love to know what prompted making that particular book, and how can someone take advantage of the information that's inside of it?
Okay, well, what prompted it was that I was hired by a trust company that handled the affairs of a woman who made $6 million a year. Her husband had died and left her royalty income of $6 million a year. And she never had any money. She was always broke. And so they hired me to advise her on how to change her lifestyle. And after I'd spent about 3 or 4 hours with that woman one day, the next day I picked up the newspaper, and in it was a story about a housekeeper who never made more than $50,000. That was her maximum salary in her lifetime, and had left several $1 million to the local university. And that got me thinking, what is it about the way these people live that one person on a very small salary could leave millions of dollars, and one person who has a several $1 million income never has any money? And so that got me into the field of behavioral finance. And then, of course, being in the syndication business and lecturing and teaching in that, people always say, well, how do I get the money to get started? And so I said, well, I'm going to look into this and write a book about it. And some of it is pretty simple again. The main thing is you have to distinguish between wants and needs. We have things we want, but we don't necessarily need them. And when you're starting out, you can only spend money on needs until you have that stake, so you can tell the investors that you have skin in the game. You need to be pretty restrictive on how you spend your money. Once you've made it and you have financial freedom, which I call having enough money coming in from your investments that you don't have to work at whatever level that may be. For some people, it might be $500,000. For some people, it might be $500 million. But until you've attained financial independence, you have to really focus on wants versus needs. Focus on the needs, and if it's a want, forget it till you have expendable cash. And that's what the book's about. And you can get all the books on Amazon. You just look up my name on Amazon, and all the books will come up.
Nice. And that's extremely simple. I love it. So what one last thing would you like to share with anyone who's either considering getting started, who was already started, and maybe they're experiencing a challenge for the first time? What advice would you give them, give anyone to just keep going or stop or make things happen and change?
Well, a couple things. First, of course, is to go to the Creative Financing Conference. And you go to creativefinancingconference.com to sign up. The second thing is, again, very simple. When you have decisions to make, sometimes we allow our emotions and our background to interfere with making the proper decision. So the trick that I found is to consider that somebody has asked you what they should do in that situation. What would you advise them? And you separate yourself from the problem when you look at it from that angle. And the answer will usually come to you pretty quickly. But you can't look at it from your own standpoint. We all have a lot of baggage we carry. So that trick is in a book, I think it's called Decisions, that came out recently, where the whole book was about that. But that would be if I had to give anyone just one piece of advice, other than learn to separate wants from needs, and learn to think long term, rather than just what happens tomorrow.
Nice. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it from the man himself, though, literally, as I've said before, wrote the book about it. And most importantly, you've got an opportunity now to actually collaborate and understand and meet up with him through a book, through the conference coming up. Again, creativefinancingconference.com. Make sure that you get yourself there September 16th because it will be beneficial. Those are the things that we're looking for. You're looking for those additional resources that can help you take the next step. It's been exciting chatting with you again and I thank you for giving us the time, your attention, the desire to continually listen and learn. We look forward to talking to you soon, and until next time.
Thank you for investing your time with Jay Massey and the Cash Flow Diary. When you have a moment, please visit iTunes and leave a positive comment about the show. And go now to our website, cashflowdiary.com, to take advantage of our free business building course, Cash Flow Foundation. Gain the knowledge, understanding, and skill that will teach you how to never need a job again. Until next time.